Welcome back, everybody, to Locked On Blue Jackets. Exciting episode today. It's a lot of theories, but we have some stuff on the coaching carousel and where the Blue Jackets are writing on it. That's up next today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden Heilsorn, and with me is my co-host, Jay Foster. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. But before we get started, thank you all for making this your first listen today. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and even the SiriusXM app. All right, Jay. We don't have a coach right now. The Blue Jackets do not have a coach. So it feels like as fans, we were just doing this, going through the list of names, trying to decide, who's who, who's what. But here we are 2 years later doing it again. And the same guys, some same names are in the mix. And one of them that I jokingly threw out the last time we talked about coaches was Mike Babcock. And we have confirmed the Blue Jackets have interviewed a one Mike Babcock. Now, this is controversial because of the way that he ended things in Toronto and kind of some other things that have came out in his career about what he's done with certain players, specifically in Detroit and Johan Franzen and in Anaheim with Mike Commodore. But Jay, everybody has their thoughts on Mike Babcock. I'll let you get yours out right now when you saw the Blue Jackets were interviewing him.
Yeah, for me, this is such a hard no. And I said that the last time we talked about him, and I still believe that. And I think there's a lot of people that talk about, so you don't believe in second chances and what happened to moving on and that happened years ago and maybe he's a different person, blah, 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 And no, I do believe in second chances and I do believe that people can grow and change. I don't believe that Mike Babcock has. I think it was a year after he got fired by Toronto, he sat down with some insider and gave his token apology and said that he'd learned a lot in his time away from the game, etc. But he didn't sound super sincere. And I don't know. I feel like his brand of coaching is a brand of coaching that is dying out in the NHL. And it feels a little bit like my worry with and this is something I've kind of been putting into words. I've only recently managed to put into words myself. I worry that the Blue Jackets are going to swing too hard back around. So they did the thing with Tortorella, and then before that was Todd Richards, who was very much a player's coach, wanted to be liked, wanted to be friends. Tortorella was the opposite. They swung right back around to the player's coach with Brad Larson, and now I worry that they're swinging all the way right back around to a guy like Babcock. And I get it. The coach should not be the player's friend. The coach should be the coach. He's not their boss technically, but there's a layer of responsibility there. And I think if you are friends with the players, then that stops you from being able to make tough decisions sometimes. That being said, I don't know. I don't think Mike Babcock's right. I think for a very young team, a very impressionable team, I think Mike Babcock comes in here, stomps all over kind of this brand new kind of fledgling attitude that this team and identity that this team is kind of starting to build after, it's been a rough couple of seasons in Columbus. And it feels like they're starting to find their way to having an identity again that they haven't really had since the early-ish days of John Tortorella. And I just don't know that Mike Babcock is the right choice. I've spoken at length before about how I'm tired of just recycling the same 35 men over and over and over. Give someone new a shot. Mike Babcock, yes, he was a very, very good coach, but that was in Detroit in the early 2000s, all the way up to 2014, I want to say, ish. That's almost 10 years ago now. The game has changed a lot since then. Babcock's been out of the coaching game for 3-4 years? I don't remember when he got.
November 2019, he got fired.
So near enough, it'll be 4 years if they hire him. That's a long time to be out of the game. And I don't know that he's still got. I don't know that we can recreate the success he had with Detroit and with Anaheim here in Columbus now in 2023 with the NHL the way it is, with the team built the way it is. I don't know. I don't see a fit, and that's even not even going into the off ice issues that I have with Mike Babcock.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's polarizing because he's a name that has terrorized hockey for good and for bad. For Canadian hockey fans, I'm sure. Yeah, you go up north, Jay, and outside of Ontario, where there's I'm sure a lot of Leafs fans, I think a lot of people have nice things to say about Babcock just because of he's a Canadian hockey legend. So when yes, I totally agree. I'm sick of the same names floating in and out every single year, and I think we need to get new guys in the mix. That's really important. But I don't think Babcock. I don't look at Babcock as the same level as a Peter Laviolette. I feel like Babcock sticks out because he's done it. He's won a championship. I know that was years ago with a stud team. But he almost won back-to-back. I'm not giving him credit. He blew Game 7, didn't beat the Penguins that second year. But he almost won back-to-back. He's won everywhere he's gone, deep playoff runs. He's not a new school hockey coach. He wouldn't be the player's buddy. He wouldn't be the player's friend. This is not like a new age modern hire at all. It's going back to the Torts system or not Torts system, but going back to a Torts kind of just a similar coach, just a guy that's going to give a team a kick in the ass, which is what I really feel like they need, Jay. Like, I feel like they do need that. There's baggage when it comes with him because of the harassment stuff. That came out after he left Toronto. And granted, it's not good. And he did say, you can take the apology for what it was, but I watched the interview today. I didn't remember the interview when it happened. I watched it today. And yeah, you can't really tell whether he's, meaning it or not. It's maybe safe to assume that he doesn't, but even so, at least he acknowledges that he made a mistake. He does acknowledge that he felt bad about the way he treated Mitchell Marner in that situation. And I just think maybe it's possible that things are just blown up about this guy because of how long he's been in the game. NHL coaches don't usually coach at a team longer than 3 years. So, like, he's been doing it for so long at so many different levels that it doesn't – I don't want to let a few bad words about him overlay what could be a lot of positive words. Granted, I haven't seen a ton of, like, hey, let's go get Babcock out of, Columbus. But then again, Columbus fans were terrorized by the Red Wings for years. So I don't blame them for initially seeing Mike Babcock and being like, let's go get him. I just think from a resume perspective, you lay out all the resumes, and we know that they've interviewed Laviolette. We know that they gave Paul Vincent a shake. You lay out the resumes, Babcock's is way and above the others, just in terms of how much he's won. Has he done it in a few years? No, he hasn't. He hasn't won a hockey game behind the bench since 2019, probably even before that, when they were even competitive, like we know that the Leafs have been now. But all I see that is an advantage. This is a guy that's been sitting on the sidelines for a few years thinking like, man, and he has property in Ohio. He mentioned that in that interview that he has farm in Ohio. I don't know if that means anything to Jackets fans, but I'm sure he feels somewhat close to the Blue Jackets, and maybe he feels like he could give this team the kick in the butt that they deserve, but maybe in a way that's more just softer, if you will. I just look at, that's a long spiel, but I just look at him and I still think of him as like a good hockey coach. Like he knows the nuts and bolts of a hockey team enough to make them competitive at least.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to counter that. I just pulled up his coaching record. Incredible. So he's got 1,301 NHL games. 700 of those are wins. Like, on paper, good. 1 Stanley Cup, 14 playoff appearances, 3 Stanley Cup finals. However, since the 2013-2014 season, when he was with the Red Wings, lost in the first round, left Detroit, joined Toronto, missed the playoffs, lost in the first round, fired after 23 games in the 2019-20 season. It's been a long time since Mike Babcock has coached a successful team.
Over a decade since he's won a playoff series, which is completely fair. That's fair. That's fair to say.
I don't know that you necessarily he's got the resume on paper, but when the last time you made it out of the conference, the last time he made it out of the second round in not a lockout year, so he made the second round. He made the third round in 2012, 2013, but that was the lockout year where they only played 48 games. 2010, 2011 was the last time Mike Babcock made it out of the second round. It's a long time. And I just don't think he's the right fit for where the team is right now. If the team was like a step away from contending for the Stanley Cup,
I think they are, though. I think they are. I think the turnaround can happen that quick. I think they're going to
contend for the playoffs this season. Contending for the playoffs does not make them a Stanley Cup contender. My best case scenario for the Blue Jackets this season is make it to the second round. If you go and you hire Mike Babcock, that to me feels like an expectation that you are going to be a Stanley Cup contender.
It does. And he's going to expect that, right? I don't know. He's 60 years old. Does he have the time to sit around and wait and build this thing? I don't know. I can tell you he's 4 years younger than Torts. So he's basically a Torts hire. This is like, it's the same thing in my eyes. Like, this is a guy with light baggage. This time it's with players. Torts, it was with media. So it's like, that can
or
make
other
you feel
coaches, depending on.
Yeah, depending on who you ask. It's a guy with baggage. It's a guy who's won before a long time ago. I don't know. I try to put myself. It's weird because I'm not an NHL player, so I can't relate to those guys like that. But I just try to put someone who's 26 in that locker room who grew up a fan of hockey, and I just think Mike Babcock walking into the room is going to earn my respect immediately. And if he has changed at all since those days in Toronto, I want to give him a serious look if I'm Jarmo. If he's changed at all, like if he's the same guy that's, going to come in and strip the names off the back of the jerseys and he's going to physically abuse players and verbally abuse them to an extent that is, damaging towards mental health. And no, I don't want that at all. Of course I don't want that.
That feels like that's a big risk to take.
It's a huge risk. It's a huge risk.
That is it's a high risk, high reward.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things have got to fall into place here. But Mike Babcock has to be a better person than he was 4 years ago. He has to be a better coach than he was 4 years ago. I don't know. It feels like a lot of things would have to go the Blue Jackets' way for this to be a sensible hire. And as we all know, the Blue Jackets never get things to go their way. And I don't know. To me, this feels like a hiring that is going to go bad basically immediately. And they've worked really, really hard to get rid of that attitude of people don't want to play in Columbus. People don't care about Columbus. And I don't know that Mike Babcock is going to want to entice free agents to want to come to Columbus or to stay in Columbus, Yeah,
it's certainly a lightning rod of a name, and it's a risk, high risk, high reward, and it's just it's going to be crazy to see if that ends up shaking out. But it's just crazy that we're even talking about it because he's been out of the game for 3 years. I didn't realistically consider him, but he's getting a shake, so it's something to consider.
It could be worse, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than Daryl Sutter. Can we agree on that? Like that guy's, I don't know. You like Sutter?
I don't like Sutter, but I don't know that Daryl Sutter has as much of the off-ice issues. Fair. It's a very, very small margin here. To me, it goes of the to me the big three bad names here are Sutter, Babcock, and Quenneville. You know?
Yeah. Well,
Of those
Quenneville,
three, I would take Sutter.
Quenneville's not even allowed to coach yet. Like
And then I would fire Joel Quenneville into the sun.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
it's a tough one. I just, of all of the names that are out there, and like the three names that we're going to talk about today, Mike Babcock to me is far and away the worst option of the three.
Yes, we will get to those shortly. I just want to remind you guys that if you're ever stressed out buying tickets for a game, some big event, it's up to you. You're trying to plan. You're trying to get the concert tickets for you and your date. Go to Gametime. Save yourself the stress. I just bought tickets recently before I worked with Locked On, and I didn't use Gametime. And I just looked at the Gametime app, and I could have saved myself quite a substantial bit of money using the Gametime app. It's a great place to buy tickets for any event. I just looked up a NASCAR race. I didn't know for sure they'd have that. They have NASCAR races. So there you go. That's something that I like. You can go find yourself tickets to, I don't know, the Coke 500 coming up this weekend. But snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets and the lowest price guaranteed. That's speaking from the heart right there, because I just took a soft L. But yes, we will get to more coaching hires right now, or more potential coaching hires, I should say. And there was a certain name that Blue Jackets fans haven't seen in the list of interviewees, or I guess we've also even seen that we confirmed didn't interview as a franchise. The Blue Jackets passed on Gerard Gallant, former Rangers coach, who spent some time in Columbus early on in his coaching career, went to Vegas, took them to the Stanley Cup final. He was a popular name. Blue Jackets fans would have liked to seen him there. I can only assume, Jay, that maybe he just wasn't interested, but what were your thoughts when you saw that there was no interview that took place?
Yeah, that one surprised me, because we all know he was basically, I think, in the running for the Blue Jackets job 2 years ago, right up until he wasn't. And so I don't know if it's that they've looked at kind of his body of work over the past 2 years with the New York Rangers, which, if I can pull up his coaching record, last year, so 2021-22, they were 52, 24, and 6, second in the division. They lost in the conference finals. This year, they were 47, 22, and 13, third in the Metro, and they lost in the first round to the New Jersey Devils. Like, not terrible. Way better than Columbus's record the past couple of seasons. But I wonder if they've looked at how Gallant has, and this is kind of folding back into the Babcock thing as well, is the Blue Jackets have a really young team. Gerard Gallant doesn't seem to want to play the young guys in New York, or if he did play them, it was like low minute and on random lines and just kind of thrown out whenever he felt like it. This team needs, for better or worse, this team needs someone that's going to play the kids, because otherwise we're going to end up with, Boone Jenner playing 30 minutes a night. And as we covered in the last episode, we love Boone Jenner. We don't want him to play 30 minutes a night. We want to see Sillinger, Marchenko, Chinakov, Johnson. We want them to get more ice time. And I don't know that Gallant will give them that. And I wonder if, this is all speculation from me. I don't know what went down. I don't know whether they reached out. Gallant said no thanks, and so it never got any further than that. I don't know whether they decided not to reach out. I don't know whether he reached out to them and said, hey, listen, I'm not interested, just so you know. But to me, I wouldn't have hated the Gallant hiring, but it makes sense that he's not being interviewed.
Yeah, it shocked me that he wasn't interviewed. I guess, I think his resume matches in similar fashion to Peter Laviolette. So if Peter Laviolette was getting interviewed, I would assume that Gallant would have gotten interviewed, and plus he had been in Columbus before, so he knows, the landscape of the city. He knows what are the best areas, what are the not so good areas. He knows those things. So it seemed like that would be a layup. Maybe he just wasn't interested, which I wouldn't blame him. Maybe he looks at Columbus like, ooh, I kind of, messed that up. That was younger me. I don't want to revisit that. Or maybe see somebody I know that I had a bad interaction with. I don't know. I would understand that. Again, we didn't see. Did we see for sure? I don't know if the Blue Jackets said no or not. That would make me curious if it did. I'd be like, why? Why are we interviewing Mike Babcock, who hasn't coached in, 3 years, and this guy just coached the New York Rangers? Anyway, so there's that. He's not being interviewed, so that's all we know. The other guys that they interviewed, Peter Laviolette, we have our thoughts on him. I don't know if he interviewed well. That's the thing. All we have is just the list of people that we've interviewed, and
yeah,
we don't know how the interviews are going.
I would love to be on the fly on the wall in the office of someone, because I have no idea what kind of questions Kekalainen is asking them, and it's fascinating to me.
Yeah,
like the concept of coaching is fascinating to me, because you can see. I've been lucky enough to kind of spend some time around a lot of very good UK hockey coaches. And it's always fascinating to talk to them about, what do you value in a team? What do you value in a player? Like, if you had the choice between these two players, which one would you pick? Which one would you give more ice time to? Things like that. And so I would love to know what kind of questions Kekalainen is asking these guys, and also what their answers are. I think that's such an interesting thing that we are never, ever going to find out about.
I'd absolutely kill to be a fly on the wall in those rooms. I think any Blue Jackets fan would, no doubt. But the first question I would ask is, on this team, which player sticks out to you on the roster? It's the first thing I'm asking each coach. I'd be curious to hear all their answers, because, I don't know. I mean, what would you, if you were being hired, what would you say to that question, Jay?
Oh, if I was being interviewed for the head coaching job, I mean, like, Gaudreau's the easy one to me. He feels like he's the most important piece. He's the best player by far. I don't know that Laviolette is going to say that, though. I think Laviolette's going to look at a guy like Zach Werenski and be like, him. That's who, that's who all of the power play offense flows through. That's who a lot of the transition game flows through. Gaudreau, phenomenal player. And I keep thinking about, like, Gaudreau didn't have a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. He was like 4 points off the Blue Jackets record for most points in a season ever. But he had 40 points less than he had last season. So, like, that's a disappointment somehow. I do keep thinking how good he's going to be this season if he gets a full season with a healthy Patrick Laine and a healthy Zach Werenski on the back end. So to me, I think, just to kind of to flip that, I think my first question would be maybe something like, okay, here are the players we have. Put some lines together. Or I would ask, what do you think went wrong with the Blue Jackets last season? Like, what would you have done differently? Things like that. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at in regards to Pascal Vincent, who obviously was there last season and the season before, saw how Brad Larson was running things, was allegedly, again, quite far into the potential hiring process when they decided to go with Brad Larson. Vincent was a very, very late candidate that then stuck around for the assistant job. He knows what went wrong last season. And in theory, he knows how to fix it. I know that looking at a problem and knowing how to fix it are two different things, but that would be my instinct would be, like, I think Laviolette is probably better at fixing problems, but I think Vincent is going to be easier at identifying them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So can we do top three before we move on from the coaching talk for today? Because sooner rather than later, we're going to have a name and we're going to have a guy, and we're going to talk about his resume. We're going to talk about what his strategy is as a coach. We'll maybe even have an interview from him to roast him on his hair. I will say this. Babcock has nice hair, which if you shave his head, I might not be as interested in him. So I'm going to try to not let that sweet, luscious rock star hair cloud my judgment on him. Okay. But still, I got on what I'd hire now, or what I think, just purely based off resume. If I'm going 1, 2, 3, I do want Mike Babcock. I want Pascal Vincent second. And then I'm now down to Peter Laviolette third. So that's my 3.
See, I don't remember what I said last time. I think I said Vincent Laviolette. I think I said Vincent, Brunette, and Laviolette for my 3.
Yes, we had Brunette.
Brunette is not being named at all in
True.
the in the
Which is
conversation, which
disappointing.
surprises me.
It's disappointing. I would have liked to give him a shake, but
yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I think I'm going to stick with my initial ranking. I'm going to go. I still think Vincent is the most interesting name to me. Laviolette second, and then like way down for me is my Babcock. I know that he's got the resume, and I know that he probably will come in and say all of the right things and do all of the right things. But for me, I can't get past how bad some of the stories that came out about him were, and I don't want that near my team. They've worked really hard to get rid of a lot of the more, I don't want to say toxic players, but I think there were some players where they had personality clashes over the past few seasons. And I think they've worked really hard to get a group of guys together that like each other and have fun and enjoy the room that they're in. And I feel like adding a personality like Babcock is not conducive to winning games. Because that's the thing. You can sit there and be like, well, you don't have to be liked to win games. No, but if you hate your coach, you're not going to play for him. You know? Mm-hmm. I don't know that the Blue Jackets are going to want to play for a guy like Mike Babcock. So,
and that reaction right there might be the reason that prevents him from getting the job. You know, he might be a good coach. He might be over all that stuff, but he made certain mistakes along the way that if it's going to cause a fan reaction, and I don't know if Jarmo would go that way. I'd be curious to see how he's testing those waters. I would love to be in one of those groups, you know. So, like, you think he gets a group of 50 Blue Jackets fans and asks them, you know, questions about how the team's doing? I don't know, stupid. All right, whatever. All right, we're going to take another pause, and when we come back, a certain Blue Jacket did a very, very awesome thing in his postseason. We'll have that next. That player that I teased is a one Jordan Dumas, who absolutely lit up the QMJHL playoffs this year, and he got named MVP of the finals. No?
Nope. Jordan Dumas got regular season MVP. James Malatesta got MVP.
So
they both won MVP, and they both have J names, so like I'll allow it. But yeah, James Malatesta won playoff MVP. Had, I believe, 20 points in 14 playoff games.
I mean, Jay was a lot more tapped in than me to this, but the fact that the Blue Jackets have two MVPs, a regular season MVP, and is it finals or just playoffs MVP for Malatesta?
Playoff MVP, but I'm going to double check that.
Yeah. Either way, it's Quebec, right? Is who Malatesta.
Quebec Ramparts. Yeah, he won the Guy Lafleur Trophy, which is the QMJHL Playoffs MVP.
Yes.
If you're winning a trophy with Guy Lafleur's name on it, like that feels like you're doing something real right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his coach was Patrick Waugh, so you got that going for you. So yeah, that's always good. But I think that's great. I think that's awesome news. I love to see Blue Jackets prospects flourish and win individual awards. It gets me really, really excited because it means that they're absolutely killing it amongst their peers, and I want them to keep doing that because eventually they're going to be old enough to play in the NHL, and I want them to win individual awards at the NHL level because I'm a Blue Jackets fan. I'm not a fan of the juniors.
Malatesta, I think, is going to be a really fun name to keep an eye on this offseason. He's almost definitely going pro after the Memorial Cup, which I've forgotten what the fourth team is. So it's going to be Quebec from the Q, Kamloops are hosting, so they automatically get to go, which is still such a weird decision to me. The Seattle Thunderbirds out of the W, and I think it was the London Knights out of the OHL, but I could be wrong about that. I just Googled Memorial and was like, why isn't it giving me what I want? Because you just typed the word Memorial into Google.
Hey, it's a big weekend. That's big here in the United States. Memorial weekend, you know, people are going to be.
Yeah, shockingly, it wasn't super helpful. I'm just going to. It is the Peterborough Petes, not the London Knights. So
the Petes.
Four pretty good teams there, but I don't know. James Malatesta, he's on a tear. If there's anyone that's going to have a big game, it's going to be him.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That's awesome. That is really cool.
I'm going to pull up where he finished in playoff scoring.
And points,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, 20 points in 18 games. 14 of those were goals, which extremely fun. He was 10th overall in playoff scoring. He was had second highest scoring on his own team, but he tied for the league lead in all of the playoffs with 14 goals. One other guy did that, but needed 21 games to do it. A guy on the Mooseheads, who's a Red Wings prospect. So we love to see that. But Malatesta, great season, even better playoffs. Shout out to him. The Memorial Cup is next weekend. No, I don't know when the Memorial Cup is.
It's so hard to.
It starts on Friday. There we go.
There's so much hockey going on.
So we'll be rooting for Quebec and Malatesta next weekend, and hopefully we'll get to bring you a very exciting update for Memorial Cup champions after that week.
May 25th through June 4th, Memorial Cup. There you go. I've won it in Chell, the EA Sports game, a couple times. That's all I can give you on that. But all right, that was a fun conversation about coaching. I hope you, the listener, can digest that and leave a comment on our YouTube page. You guys have been leaving some fire takes in the YouTube comment section. Keep that up. I learn a lot in the YouTube comment section, so that's all good. But tomorrow's episode is going to be fun because a certain player, aka Austin Matthews, is not re-upping with the Leafs, or at least not yet re-upping with the Leafs. So we will hit that discussion tomorrow. Thank you all so much for listening, for making us your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and the SiriusXM app. I've been Hayden Heilshorn, and you can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find our co-host, Jay Foster, at _Jacob FORSTER on Twitter. And then you can also find us Locked On Blue Jackets. I lost my screen to, there it is. We're on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. And you can email us things too at, I got this last time. You can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.